Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, and...
I feel like I should be in the witness protection program
Jay
today.
Stevens. It's
Witness
Dark Side of the
protection.
Stream.
Witness protection program.
We don't have enough money to actually pay for the blurring of his face,
we can't figure out how to do it. So
I was
Jay, hey guys, I don't know who Jay is. I feel like we should take precautions because we're talking about the mob.
We are talking about the mob today at Dark Side of the Stream. We are going to discuss Jay's pick, which was
once again.
Yeah, pretty damn good. This was called Untold Crime and Penalties, and it talks about the story of a hockey team called the Danbury Trashers. Jay, since this was your pick, tell me all about it.
Well, a guy who worked in the waste management industry, his son was a hockey player, but his son got hurt. So when his son was 17, to fulfill his hockey passions, he bought him a minor league hockey team and let the son run the team.
Can you imagine? Well, there's a little bit more to it.
That's the synopsis of it.
But can you imagine you're 17 years old, and according to this kid, he's literally sitting at the dinner table, and his dad just says,
hey, by the way,
17-year-old junior in high school, or maybe he's a senior, you have a hockey team now. You're the owner of a hockey team. And he said at first he didn't like think it was for real. Like he just kind of was like, oh yeah, Dad, okay, whatever. Because we as fathers say stupid crap to our kids all the time.
Always.
But he was serious. And the way he knew about it was when he went to school, like the next day, some teacher or someone was like, hell yeah, dude, all right. And he's like, oh my God, it's I actually own a hockey team.
But the kid stepped up and did actually a really good job.
You know what? For being a 17-year-old kid.
And I like the out of the box thinking of
my God. It was
making it such a badass experience and fighting and
it's a crazy story. But
it went how you think it would go if you had a 17-year-old.
If you were to give a 17-year-old kid a pro team or a semi-pro team and said, hey, do what you will with it, you would have had this story all day. He did survive it, and it did last for a long time, but it didn't come without some crazy stuff, and that's what we're talking about.
Because his dad had a side hustle.
Well, yeah, if you want to call it that, he had a little bit of a side hustle where he was getting money in the waste management business. This is Dark Side of the Stream. We're discussing Jay's pick today, Untold Crime and Penalties, about the Danbury Trashers on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, back in the studio this morning with Jay Stevens discussing the documentary he picked, Untold Crime and Penalties, about the Danbury Trashers. It was a hockey team that existed from 2004 to 2006, owned and ran primarily by a 17-year-old kid, the son of a member of the Genovese crime family.
Yeah, it turns out that there was mob connections.
So,
Dad was mob connected.
Where'd the money come from? Well, guess what?
A lot of money
management.
laundering going on.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Hey, doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound like, isn't there another crime guy that was in waste management?
Yeah.
Yes. Tony Soprano was in waste management, and actually James Galante was the inspiration for the character Tony Soprano.
That's what they say, right? That this guy was the inspiration.
And it's funny that the whole waste management thing is in there, but it's true. That's basically what he became.
But the kid came up with some good concepts. He goes, "I want to hire some badass guys, and pay them way more than they would make on any other team."
Well, not only that, but we'll do that part first. Yes, he would hire these guys that were badass and pay them a lot of money, but also their wives got hired, their friends got hired,
under the table deals.
This was just a money thing. This was just for money to funnel. And when you're making that kind of money and you're not doing,
fans went crazy though in this town.
Yeah.
They ate it up.
And that was one thing that the kid did say. He says that he thinks in his heart of hearts that this was done for the community, that in a roundabout way, the whole Danbury Trashers thing was for the community. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for Dad to say, hey, kid, this is your own hockey team. You do with it, be a success. It was more about, hey, community, here's this badass hockey team. My kid's running. Go enjoy it.
ESPN is showing up to cover these games. Like, dude, you got to give them props, man.
And for good reason, because these guys weren't really like great players. They wanted to rule by intimidating their opponents, and they did that by sometimes literally the puck gets dropped. Their
just
dudes are already got
and
the
just
gloves
smash
off and
somebody.
they just go after guys. They're enforcers. They're just beating the living hell of these dudes.
So
and
good, so
it was just,
I'd go wild too in the crowd.
oh man, hardcore. Now you hear about when opposing teams come into a community, like for example, if a team comes into Kansas City, they go to stay at a hotel that's usually undisclosed. By the end of the day, a fan of the team knows that they're there, and they start screwing with the team's hotel rooms. It does happen, but these guys actually did it a lot. They did it so much so that when a visiting team would go in, fire alarms would go off in the middle of the night.
Freaked out, man.
They turn the heat off in the opposing locker room's team. It was basically like you would think a high school kid would run a hockey team, which I mean, you're sitting at dinner and your dad tells you, "Hey, you got your own professional team." I don't know what I would do. I would say, I guess we'll just see how far this goes.
But it worked, man. It worked.
It's Dark Side of the Stream discussing the Danbury Trashers on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream today discussing Untold, and it's the story about the Danbury Trashers. Now, it's funny they got this name because, the daddy who put the money behind this is in waste management. That's a whole thing. But it all came to an end in 2016 when the FBA raided his transfer station along with his buddy and former Waterbury mayor, Matthew the Horse.
But yeah, there was some shady characters in this one, man.
They
did play a baller move. The hockey guys were on strike. The Rio Hockey and NHL were on strike. And a player that had just won the Stanley Cup the year before, they said, let's get him. He's not playing hockey. Let's get him, pay him a crap load of money to come and join. And the guy's like, all right, I'll do it. So literally wins the Stanley Cup. Next year he's playing for this crazy whacked out team run by a 17-year-old.
Hey, money's money, and if you're not doing anything else, who cares? You just don't want to be that guy where you're the one that's jumping the fence whenever you're on strike. But going to play in a team like this, I guess, is okay.
It was legendary. It made me want to buy a Trashers jersey.
I'm glad you brought that up because since they were stopped in 2006, they came back in 2010. They were the Danbury Whalers. That was over in 2015. Then they were the Danbury Titans in 2015 to 2017, followed by the Danbury Hat Tricks, which is what they are now.
Legendary. And the group of fans, like the section of fans that would just boo the commissioner and like. But at the end, it was all good in the end, right? In the end, everything worked out.
I mean,
good.
Other than the guys that were involved in the mob, yes, it worked out for everyone. The kid ended up saying that he kind of went through a bad breakup with hockey after this whole thing. Didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to watch it. He drove trucks for heating and oil companies, and then actually now runs a fighting gym, doesn't he?
Yeah, runs a little boxing gym.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. At least he's back in the sports. But yeah, crazy story. I actually had, as far as I'd like to think that I know a little bit about some things. This one was one that I'd never heard of.
Me neither. It was just random. I just clicked on it, and here we go.
It's a crazy story, and we'll talk about how many trash trucks our ratings are next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream today, discussing Untold, the story of the Danbury Trashers, the United Hockey League team. Bought and then run by the son of a mobster.
Mob connection.
How many trash trucks do you give this documentary?
I give it 4 just because it was entertaining. It was
when I learned something
crazy story.
Usually the way, if you guys haven't figured this out, if it's good, we usually go with 3.5. If it blows our mind, we're like 4 or 5. But if I learn something, I usually give that extra half point to 4. And since I had no idea, I knew about the dad because I'm a big Sopranos fan, so I knew the inspiration for that. And I should have kind of known this happened, but I didn't really read a whole lot into him. But then I'm glad I did because what a crazy story. And it kind of makes me upset that my parents never gave me a hockey team or a football team when I was a kid. But probably knowing who I was at 17 years old, that probably would have killed me. And I'm glad I'm still alive.
Yeah, right. You imagine?
Oh, dude, we'd have been dead all day. So Jay picked this one next week. I want us to watch The Jinx, HBO Max. You probably heard him in the news recently. Robert Durst.
Heard about it.
Supposedly, allegedly offed his wife, and then a friend of his helped him with an alibi, and then she was offed. And while they were making this documentary on a live microphone, he gives them the evidence they need to convict him in court.
Yes.
So this is a crazy documentary in the sense that it actually helped convict someone.
This
It's on
one's
HBO
old, too.
Max.
This one's
Yeah, it
old,
was
right?
made a few years ago, but it, in the way, because COVID kept pushing things back, and they actually just convicted him of it.
Wow.
So, and I'm sure there's going to be appeals and stuff. But yes, we are going to watch The Jinx, HBO Max.
Right.
You got some time to do it. As always, you can follow us on Facebook Live every Thursday at 9. You can always download these as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave
You can always
app.
call Mike's cell phone.
Yeah, and suggest stuff if you want. Hit Jay up by the pool
Find me on
somewhere.
Grindr.
He'll be on Grindr or by the pool. This is Mike the Intern and Jay Stevens saying so long, and keep watching whatever you like to watch. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.